Hi everyone, I'm Dan Stobbs, Head of Social Media here at BlueSky PR, and this is another weekly Q&A where we're going to be looking at your recruitment marketing questions. So shortly we're going to be joined by our account director, Stephanie King, who will be putting together some of the questions that we've been asked throughout the week across LinkedIn, Twitter, and email. So stay tuned now for when we go through some of the top questions and how we can help you answer recruitment marketing and in particular social media. So we're just going to let Steph on here. Here we go. Hi Steph, can you hear me? How are you? Are you okay, Steph?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I can now. Good. So I was just briefly just giving an intro of how the weekly Q&A works and how it's all about recruitment owners and recruitment marketers posing questions to us regarding social media, PR, and general marketing, just general recruitment topics, but also how to get through the current sort of coronavirus crisis that we're facing. So do you want to kick off with any questions that have come in, Steph?
Yeah, we've been quite busy over the last few days. And the first question for you is, should we go quiet on social until this is over so we don't appear instead? And if not, what sort of content should we be posting?
Okay, that's quite an interesting question. So I have noticed a few firms, particularly smaller ones, have gone quiet on social, as well as a few other sort of businesses in other sectors. But to be honest, I think going quiet on social is one of the worst things you could do at this moment in time, because at the end of the day, there will be a time, hopefully in a few months' time, when this is all over and your brand really needs to be visible on social, and you need to sort of, in the meantime, build up and fill your pipeline. So I definitely wouldn't advise going quiet on social. But in regards to the topics that you can push out, try and look at content that adds real value to both candidates and clients. So look at what's currently going on in terms of professional development. So recently, in the last couple of weeks, some people might know that I've been doing some social media consultation calls with recruitment firms, and I've been getting to know some of their own challenges. And one of the main pieces of feedback that people have said in terms of the content they're looking to push out is how they can enrich sort of the professional lives of both candidates and clients at the moment. So, for example, a lot of people are looking at focusing on digital skills. So, whereas before a lot of the content they were producing was all about CVs and job applications, now they're looking at how they can make some of their candidates a bit more digitally savvy. So, for example, they've been doing blog posts on how to leverage LinkedIn for networking opportunities, just in this down period, so they've got a lot more connections, and then they can use those in the coming months to help build up their own careers. Other firms have been looking at producing webinars on how to do video interviews for both candidates and clients. So it's all about looking and thinking a bit more outside the box in terms of not just doing the standard CV tips, application tips, and look at building some more of the sort of digital skills and helping people step up in their career ladder over the next few months. That's something that's really key at the moment.
That's great, thanks, Dan. And I think the next question ties in quite nicely with came in on a DM. How frequently should we be posting content?
Okay, so I'd say it depends on your current frequency, first of all, and what platforms. But generally, as a rule of thumb, I would say on Twitter, for example, I would spread your messaging out sort of 3 times on weekdays, once or twice at the weekends, because that way you've still got some content being pushed across social, and by sort of spreading it out across them, you're going to be still getting the eyes of your audience on your content. For LinkedIn, I'd say once every 1 to 2 days, because the algorithms of all these platforms are different, and if you post something once every couple of days on LinkedIn, the algorithm likes that. Whereas as we all know about Twitter, it's real time, so you need to have a bit more in terms of quantity. And again, for Facebook, I would say again once every day or two, and Instagram sort of 2 to 3 times a week, really. So I wouldn't drastically go changing it, despite what's going on at the moment. The key is to have quality content over quantity, because you could be pushing out a lot of content thinking it's going to get that reach that you need, but at the end of the day, if people aren't engaging with it and clicking through, it's going to be worthless. So just make sure you focus on that quality content, really.
Okay, great. And the next question is about, I guess, being seen. So with so much content based around coronavirus, understandably, how can we ensure our content sort of stands out and gets seen by the people we want it to be seen
Yeah, so I think this is something whether it's social or just looking on general news, there is everywhere we turn at the moment, it is coronavirus driven. So one of the most creative ways I've seen a lot of recruitment firms stand out on social media at the moment is by using a lot of curated content. So, for example, um, I've seen a lot of great content in the care sector at the moment, for example, because again, as we've seen on the news, there's a lot of sort of terrible statistics with what's going on in the care sector, but the publications have found a way of balancing that out with a lot more light-hearted content. So, literally, a couple of days ago, I saw a lot of recruitment firms that specialise in health and social care pushing out a lot of content to do with videos of care home residents singing, dancing, and this content was really getting a lot of attention, because when we go on social media, we don't want to just constantly see more of the doom and gloom. We want stuff to stand out on their feed. So I'd look at going down the curated content avenue and look at some of the key publications for the sectors that you recruit for. Again, recruitment firms specialise in marketing, for example. There's a publication called Marketing Week that a lot of people probably recognise, and they've got their own sort of humorous cartoon on there that sort of pokes fun at some of the latest marketing trends. And again, when recruitment firms source content like that and push it out, it gets a lot of traction, because again, people just want something a bit more fun and quirky in these times. So I'll definitely look at curated content and see what's in the sectors that you recruit in, because it will get a lot of engagement and it will stand out in people's feeds that way.
Okay, great. And then the next one ties into sort of conversations I know that we've had in terms of sort of scheduling content and how people have been perhaps putting content out that's not appropriate. So this question is, should we stop scheduling altogether at the moment and stop sort of putting in evergreen content given the current situation?
Okay, so what I would recommend for that, I wouldn't just stop full stop in terms of scheduling evergreen content. What I'd first do is conduct a content audit, so go through your content calendar and your scheduling tools that you use, and carefully review both the messaging and the content itself, because the worst thing you can do is put messaging out that's obviously completely tone deaf to what's going on in the situation that we face at the moment. But also the content. I've seen recruitment firms that specialise in international recruitment over the last week still put a lot of content which is clearly evergreen, and giving advice on how to secure a job abroad, and particularly in countries at the moment that are in lockdown. So obviously that's not going to happen. So make sure that you just have a proper audit of all your content that you've scheduled, and then you can carefully tweak the messaging and then just remove from the content pool blog posts that aren't going to be relevant for the next few months. And if you do it that way, you can still have that balanced mix of both proactive and reactive content on your social media channels.
Okay, great. And the next question is quite an interesting one. And I know you touched on being furloughed earlier. This question is, what messaging, if any, should we put out about our team being furloughed? And that this person's given me an example and said that they've seen a couple of agencies putting out posts about the team sort of being out of the business temporarily, very positive and uplifting, and provide contact details of people to go to. So, what's your view on that subject?
To be honest, I think that can be a bit of a difficult one to sort of gauge the balance, because on one hand, you don't want to put out messaging that makes people think that your recruitment firm is in trouble. But I have, again, myself seen a couple of firms who've done it really nicely. They sort of highlighted the fact that what they're facing at the moment is only temporary, and they've clearly outlined the operational steps that's going on within the organisation to make sure that they're servicing the needs of both candidates and clients. So I think the key thing there is just to try and highlight it's only a temporary measure, but also just highlight how that situation is going to impact you in the short term. So just make sure that you clearly outline your working from home arrangements, who will be picking up any applications or queries in the interim, because as long as you're clearly sort of addressing questions that people are going to be posing as to how they can get in touch and what's going on, I think you can navigate it successfully that way, rather than just focusing on the negative that people are being furloughed. So just make sure that you're just addressing the questions that people are bound to have about it.
Okay, great. And I think one's just come in. Can you see that one, Dan? So I've just got it getting it up on my screen. Should recruitment companies invest in new technology and websites now, whilst they have time to focus? Just if I can sort of step in there on my, I guess my take and my experience, that certainly on the website side, I've actually had quite a few conversations in the last week about from companies that are actually sort of, they might be used to working 10, 12-hour days, and now they're looking at 6 hours. They're actually taking that bit of downtime to sort of assess, and if they've had a website on redesign on the cards, they're looking into that. So we've actually had a couple of queries about looking at content for new websites. So I think it's certainly something that's worth looking into. Obviously, balancing out the investment at the current in the current situation, but it's certainly something that I think a lot of agencies are looking into. So projects that perhaps have been put on hold due to a lack of capacity. Now that people have a bit more time on their hands, certainly looking at it, and it can be something that you can go out to the market with. Things settle down, which we all hope won't be too far off. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, some firms more than others are going to have a bit more spare time. So I would advise using this downtime to, look at how you can innovate in terms of your website, any different software that you could be using, and of course your marketing content. Because if you've got some downtime, it's not as busy as it has been. I think now is a great time just to put everyone's heads together and plot out sort of the future months, really.
Cool. Hope that answered that question. And then another one's just come in on Twitter. Should I still be getting the team to share bits on social media if they aren't picking up many roles at the moment?
Okay, yeah. I mean, even if they're not having that many vacancies at the moment, definitely utilize your team to push out and amplify your social media content, because at the end of the day, employee advocacy, which is, for those of you who don't know, where your staff like, share, comment, engage with all your content across social channels has a real benefit to the reach and engagement of your content. So again, just make sure that they are actively engaging with your content, because it puts more eyes on your content. So in the future months, once this is over, you'll be front of mind in both the eyes of candidates and clients. So definitely try and incentivize them to engage with the content, because the benefits speak for themselves in the long run with it.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions so far. But obviously, if anyone that's listening live, do post them. I just wanted to mention or ask you, Dan, that I know that you've been offering these free social consultations recently, which have had a great take up. So I know you mentioned them earlier, but is there anything particular coming out of these that would be worth mentioning?
I think something that's come out of these calls is that naturally in recruitment firms, it always seems to be a sort of a silo between the marketing staff and the rest of the business. And I think working from home has sort of amplified that disconnect. And I think one of the things I picked up from these calls is that people just want another sort of marketing person to talk to and discuss ideas, because not having that day-to-day sort of physical meetings with other staff members has sort of distanced themselves. So I think one of the things I would recommend all the recruitment marketers out there is just try and book time in, once, twice a week, just to have, so you've got regular team meetings going on with your consultants, your SMT, and all the different departments that make up your firm, because this will give you a great way of looking at the content you're pushing out and generating new ideas for going forward. Because I think some people are sort of a bit afraid at the moment of just trying to take up people's time that way. But at the end of the day, the best ideas in recruitment come from everyone putting their heads together. So I'll just recommend people do that, and sort of don't be afraid to ask for help, despite what's going on at the moment.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions so far. Thanks, Dan, for giving us that wealth of information. And I know next week we're on again at midday. I've had quite a few conversations this week about sort of surveys and events. So perhaps that's something we could look at next week. So if anyone has any questions on that, or recruitment marketing, social in general, we'll be back next week. And I think I'll be hosting next week, and Dan, I think we'll have you on as a guest to cover any social media. Thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your questions today. And again, if you do have any more, you can tweet us directly at BlueSky PR, and we can pick up any queries there to go through with you personally, or next week's show at 12 p.m. on Wednesday. So thanks so much for posing all the questions today that everyone sent in, Steph, and we'll be seeing you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Bye.